Hello, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful lunch. We're thrilled that you've joined us for this afternoon session on recruiting and keeping the best volunteers. So I'm going to turn it over to Bill in just a second. If you guys were a part of his session this morning, he'll be building off of his skills-based volunteer presentation. But if you weren't in attendance, no problem. It'll be an easy catch-up. So Bill Holterstrom, who has been a friend of Volunteer Florida and National Service for many years, is the president and CEO of the United Way of Utah County in Utah. And just a quick fun fact, he served on the board for the Hogle Zoo in Salt Lake City. So I'm going to turn it over to Bill.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm hoping you're all having a good day. I'm here in Provo, Utah. Our current temperature here, we're up to a warm 34 degrees. So I am jealous already that I'm not with you there in Florida. I want to share with you today just some ideas of marketing about using the things that you kind of already know. And let me kind of describe my training style on this particular workshop. First, I have a degree in marketing. I've taught marketing for nonprofits and volunteerism for several decades. And I'm really going to be sharing with you things that I think you already know, but just don't realize it applies to this world also of marketing and volunteering. I'm going to start here just by showing you that you saw this probably in the last few sessions of the 8 volunteer management practices. We're going to really be focusing today on the recruiting and marketing to prospective volunteers. I'm going to broaden that to say that we're not only going to be talking about recruiting and marketing to prospective volunteers, but to do this well, we have to make sure that we're retaining volunteers as well. And one of the struggles I see in our sector is that we are really good at recruiting, but we can't keep them. And it's based on some of the same fundamental flaws that we have that we can think about from our marketing world. I do want to engage with you. We're going to have a few times, we're going to have you do some thumbs up, some thumbs down. The bottom of your screen, you'll see a thumbs up and thumbs down. I also want you to be able to answer some questions for me occasionally here. And so I'm going to start with a very simple question here. You see a picture of a can of Coke. In fact, I have a can of Coke here in my hand. And my question, and I want you to use your thumbs up and thumb down here, is how many of you would think that the fair price for you to pay a can of Coke is between 50 cents and $1? Give me a thumbs up if it's up. Just hit the thumbs up or thumbs down. Does 50 cents to $1 seem about right for a can of Coke? And I'm not seeing anybody hitting that one yet. Have everybody found that? Audrey, that is enabled for everybody, Audrey? So on the bottom of your screen, you should see the thumbs up, thumb downs. Are we seeing those? So I've got one thumbs up so far, $1, only 3. I've got a few of you. I just want to get a general feeling. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I see thumbs up so far, $1. Okay. We got 70 people. I want everyone to vote here. I don't want anyone to feel disenfranchised in this world this day. So we have 32 thumbs up so far. Fantastic. Let me ask you a question now. So we just said 50 cents to $1, but with this can of Coke. Let me ask you a question. If I said this can of Coke, by drinking this can of Coke, you would stay at your ideal weight with 0 effort if you bought this can of Coke. One-time purchase of a can of Coke, and you'd stay at your ideal weight forever. How many people would be willing to spend $100 for this can of Coke if you believe that? Give me thumbs up and thumbs down again. And someone can answer how they send the thumbs up and down. The emojis on the bottom of the slide is what I believe. So thumbs up, thumbs down, would you spend $100 if you would keep you at the ideal weight for the rest of your life by buying this once? And I'll let the moderator kind of tell me the total votes here. So something happened that made this can of Coke go from $1 to $100. Okay. And I'm seeing quite a few, and some of you doing the hand raise on the very right. The emojis for the thumbs up and the down is in the center at the bottom, I understand. Some people I'm jealous of those who would not spend $100 on this. Now let me ask you, and by the way, this is all based on the belief that you believe me. Okay, so I don't want cynicism here. This is purely on the fact that you believe what I'm saying. Now let me ask the question. If by drinking this can of Coke, you would be able to stay at your perfect weight at your perfect health and be so healthy that you'd be able to earn basically an infinite amount of money? How many of you would pay me $10,000 if you believed that this was true? So back to the thumbs up, thumbs down. If you believed it was true, and you believe me that for $10,000, this would give you perfect health, perfect weight, and the ability to earn as much money as you wanted to. I'm seeing lots of, some people are up and down, are saying no on this, but most of you are saying yes. So the question I'm asking here is, what happened? So we have 20 up and 13 down and about 30 people who aren't voting. For those who are saying up, would somebody just type a message about why you'd pay that much money for it if you believe me? Why would you pay more money now for this can of Coke? What happened? The promises changed, and in marketing terms, the value changed. Let me ask this next question. I'm not going to have you to poll on this one. It became more benefit? The question I'm going to ask you here now is, would you pay this $10,000 so that I would receive the benefit instead of you? If you want to put your votes in and hurt my feelings, you can. But would you pay this? Some of you say I'm very gullible, it's hearsay, but if you believed it, so if you thought if it increased my benefit instead of yours, would any of you be willing to pay the $10,000? And my guess is not. So Sarah, thank you for being honest there. It would not, back to the 50 cents. That's exactly right. So the benefit has to be to the person who's contributing their time or money or anything like that. And this is one of our mistakes in marketing to nonprofits or to recruit volunteers, is we often promote the wrong benefit. And so let me go to this next slide here to kind of explain more of those principles here. So marketing is really the facilitating the exchange of value. You give me something, I give you something. If that value is, if I receive a value equal to or greater than what I put into it, I'll do the exchange again. So the benefit to me has to be equal to or greater than the cost. So if I want something, if somebody wants me to do something, buy something, they have to give me more benefit to make it match the cost. The other choice that they have is that they can lower the cost. We're approaching what normally used to be Black Friday now to this whole season of sales. So there's two basic ways that people try to sell us in life. The first one that you used to always see was new and improved, more benefit. The second one is reducing the cost, putting something on sale. As we talk through this, I might add, as someone has kind of mentioned gullible and who's going to believe this, what you sell has to be believable. If you are like most of us, you have purchased something in your life that you thought was on sale and then discovered there were a lot of hidden costs. I mean, have you ever bought something and discovered there's a hidden shipping cost? You bought something and it didn't come with the power cord. You had to pay an extra $30 for that. We don't like hidden costs as consumers. We also want the benefits to be real. So if I oversell the benefits, I don't have credibility. If I undersell the costs, I don't have credibility. So in volunteerism, these same principles apply. So we often in volunteerism undersell the cost. We don't tell the volunteer that they're going to be working with what may be perceived as an obnoxious teenager. We don't tell the volunteer that they're going to have the worst computer in the office. We don't tell the volunteer that the chair was the chair that got passed down from 16 other employees who rejected that chair. Hidden costs. We also don't remind volunteers very often of the benefits that they get. And so it's a really interesting dilemma on managing costs and benefits. But this same principle applies to virtually every volunteer exchange that you ever have. Every volunteer you ever recruit, have recruited, will recruit, has to make a decision. Is the benefit equal to or greater than the cost? So, and that cost has to be in relationship to the person the actual person. So the benefit, for example, we're going to go through some examples in a few minutes. But the benefit has to be my benefit if you're recruiting me. So the benefit is not necessarily the benefit of the community. It's the benefit to how I feel about benefiting the community. So let's brainstorm some costs here. And if you don't mind doing some typing again here, what are some of the costs that may be that may happen that volunteers may be paying for as a volunteer? Anybody want to give me a couple examples? I'm going to start with the cost is time. Anybody else want to bravely type in a couple other costs to the volunteer? Time is a good one. What else? Transportation, gas, that's great. Keep going. Uniforms, background checks, weather, hard work training, money. Oh, I love these. Opportunity, all of these opportunity. There's so many, all of these costs that volunteers encounter. Stress, that's a great one, Lauren. Experience. So look at this, childcare. Look at these great ideas, things here. Risk of exposure, physical labor. Your back might hurt afterwards. So these are the costs to volunteer. What happens, hotel overnight accommodations. Well, we have equipment problems. What we haven't even mentioned is the annoyance of that person I have to work in that office who's exhausted, or the know-it-all coworker, or the idea that I'm a retired professional and I get treated like I've never used a phone before or something. There's a whole series of costs that aren't. Look at all these great ideas. Anxiety, impact. So one of the options is how do we have to understand the costs, and we have to try to mitigate the costs or lower the costs. Let's now talk about the benefit side here. What are the possible benefits for volunteering? What is the benefit? So the benefit, by the way, I have to keep in mind the benefit has to be the benefit in relationship to that volunteer or that donor. What would a benefit be? Let's try to type in some ideas of what that benefit is. And interestingly enough, as I've done this over the last few decades, we normally have a large sense of accomplishment. It's a great one. Rewarding feeling, feels good. Oh, we got some great one here. Good answers here. Socialization, self-worth, lots of research on all of these answers. Learn new skills, practice new skills. So look at all this. Giving back, feeling of accomplishment, hours, service hours. So what's interesting as I look at these ideas here is some of these benefits would work for some volunteers, but not others. Some of the costs might work with some volunteers and not others. And that it is a remarkably interesting thing. So I'm going to tell you a quick story here. Thank you. Phil, if you have any other ideas of benefit, keep writing down. I'm going to tell you a quick story. And the principle I want to share is that a benefit to one could be a cost to another. Quite a few years ago, and I don't know if I can't see you, so I don't know who I'm talking to here, but I had our friends in the whole senior corps world and I don't know if there was an RSVP or a senior companion. I'm not even sure if I can remember anymore. I was invited to go to their recognition banquet, which was held at our state hospital's auditorium. You can imagine how exciting that would be, just the idea of going there in the first place. I had a chance to visit they're recognizing me, by the way, because our organization helped fund them. So I went into this big room, and there were these long tables, and you had to squeeze between these long tables to get to your seat. And when you're sitting there, you're almost sitting there like you would on an airplane where you're kind of holding your silverware like this, eating. You've all pictured that experience. And I don't even have to ask you, but let me take a quick quiz here. I went to a volunteer dinner. What did they serve me for dinner? Who's the first one to give me the answer what they served me? You're a volunteer. What's served at volunteer dinners all over America? Chicken is the answer. I'm looking. Chicken. There you go, Beth. Beth, you pat yourself on the back. The group now has the chicken. Chicken with the pasta. That's exactly. Those are the two things that we serve. The universal nonprofit recognition thing is chicken with a cheap pasta. Very good. Good answer there. I'm jealous of you guys that do the pizzas. Wow, you guys are fancier community than mine. So it was a chicken dinner, sitting there going like this, eating my dinner. I forgot to tell you, the dinner was at 4 p.m. Yeah, it's a senior corps. It's a 4 p.m. dinner. Dinner went through, they get the recognitions, and now about 5:30. And they started going to a drawing, and they started drawing little slips of paper. And they'd pull out a paper and they'd read out 132751. And then they'd say it again, 132751. Who has that? And they would go and the first one would say, hey, I got that number. And then hand them a door prize. The door prize was a door prize that came from a dollar store. In fact, I think some of the door prizes were 2 for $1. They were handing out spatulas. They were handing out plastic spoons as awards. And this leadership of this group really wanted people to feel valued. So they had a prize for every single person there. So they kept drawing numbers, 3, 7, and this went on for an hour and a half. So let me ask you a question. This recognition dinner was designed to benefit me. Was that a cost or benefit to me? I'll tell you that. I'll give you the answer. My next question is, do you think I've ever been back to that recognition dinner? It's a cost. Thank you. Very good answers there. It was a cost. They worked hard, but for me, it was a cost. For others, it could be a benefit. And that's the tricky part here. It can be a benefit for one and a cost for another. And by the way, let me ask you this next question. Do you think I tell them I don't go because of this event? No. What is the universal word I say of why I can't go to something? I don't have, someone fill in the blank. I don't have time. The number one reason that people say why they don't volunteer is they don't have time or they're busy. Time is the universal safe way of saying the cost is greater than the benefit. When somebody tells you, I don't have time, they're really saying is the cost is greater than the benefit for that exchange. Because they're not going to tell you, I'm not doing this because I think you guys are poorly managed. They're not, because that makes them look bad. They're not going to say all those things. They're going to almost always use the discourse of time. So when you have high turnover of volunteers, we all like it. In that case, we notice, oh, it must be high burnout or people are too busy. But the idea of time is our safe way of saying the cost is not greater than the benefit, or the cost is greater than the benefit. So with that in mind, I want us to break this down here. I want us to break into a group. We break into groups in just a minute, and hopefully we'll get the technology working for it. I want you to select in your group, I want you to select a specific volunteer opportunity that ideally maybe a couple of you in the group have. That volunteer opportunity could be a volunteer opportunity like, I need someone to tutor. It may be, I need someone to organize some. I need a marketing expert. Choose a specific type of volunteer of opportunity. Then I want you to kind of think, if you're going to think of what skill sets you're really looking for. I want you to list the cost and benefit for those on the handout. And Audrey, the handout's available in the handouts section. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm getting it uploaded now.
Yeah. And then I want you to list the potential benefits to that volunteer. So the first part, for about 7 or 8 minutes, I want you to, as a group, decide together of a specific volunteer opportunity. I don't want this to be a universal volunteer opportunity because that really is too broad. Too many people you're speaking to. So narrow it down to one that your group can agree on. And then the second part of that assignment is I want you to find a way to reduce. What can we do as possibly as a nonprofit or volunteer organization to lower the costs and or increase the benefits? So someone said the link is not valid. Let's see if we get that working. So do we think we have that working, moderator?
Yeah, give me just a second.
Okay, so this idea that I just want to be able to have you identify, I want you to think through the cost and benefits. I think she's still trying to upload the handout here. And the reality, this is the tool that I have found useful in virtually every volunteer opportunity when you try to recruit somebody, and then when you try to retain somebody, analyze the cost versus the benefit. You may discover that you have to increase the benefit for somebody, or you may discover that you have to lower the cost. By the way, sometimes you cannot lower the cost. So the only option really is to increase the benefit. If you have more volunteers you know what to do with, you actually have the ability to increase the cost of volunteering, giving them less convenient schedules if needed, whatever. So let's see if we got this. Sorry for this. Don't we all love this technology here? Okay, so copy and paste into your browser to go to that handout is what it's saying here. And then I will let Audrey explain how to get into the breakout sessions. The breakout sessions, we will do the breakout sessions. We will go until 10 minutes after the hour for the breakout. I have a bit of assignment, and then we want to come back and see if we can do some reporting out on that one. So if you will, Audrey, you want to give the instructions for the breakout?
Yes, I can. Okay, so what you will do is you will need to press the X at the top of this session to exit out of this webinar. You'll move over to the agenda, which is under the event menu item. You'll want to click on breakout room 1, and it's called Recruiting and Keeping the Best Volunteers. So from there, once you enter, you can choose a breakout room. They are maxed out at 6 participants. So please make sure that if it says 6 out of 6, you can't enter that room. Please make sure that you are choosing rooms with other people in it. And if you are one of 6, hopefully someone will join you so you won't have to be there by yourself. And so we will see you back in 10 minutes past the hour.
Thank you, everybody. Audrey, can we tell if most people made it into the breakout?
I would say no, because we're about probably half. Well, they're leaving now. Yeah. So
if you need help, send us a message. It says that he can't download any of the handouts. You saw the note over there under presenters where we can mail it to Bravura and they'll upload it if we want to?
Yep, I'm doing that right now.
Okay. So sorry for that.
Yeah, I did put it in as a upload beforehand. So
okay. Apologize to the group that can't get the handouts. We'll try another way to do it. If not, you can do it on a piece of paper and just follow what you see on this picture with the cost and benefit, and just do it on a piece of paper if you need to. So the breakout instructions, you want to tell them how to get to the breakout again, Audrey?
Yes. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to hit the X at the top of the screen. It's going to ask you why you left. Say, I'm done with the session. And you'll go back to the main screen, the agenda, and then you'll go to the 1:30 block where it says breakout room 1, recruiting and keeping the best volunteers. Once you click in, you'll be able to see the many different breakout rooms that we have. And if it says 0 out of 6, it means no one's in there yet. So feel free to join and hopefully someone will connect with you. And then if you keep scrolling down, you can see the ones that have like 2 out of 6, 3 out of 6, so that you can join ones that are already in session.
Anyone else have any more questions about breakouts or handouts? Do our breakout numbers look like they're full?
They are being added to, yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, do you want to go one more time on the instructions?
Yep. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to exit out of this webinar. You'll say everything was fine, like your session, you're done with the session. You'll go back to your agenda, which is under the event menu. From there, you'll want to click breakout room 1, recruiting and keeping the best volunteers. And then from there, you'll hit join a virtual session and you'll be able to see the many different breakout rooms.
And you join a session that has at least 1 person in it, but does not have 6 already. So any session that has 1 to 5 in it, and at the conclude at 10 after, you'll come back and rejoin the session as you originally joined this session. So it says the handout say damage, is that?
So the handout has now been uploaded in the handout section.
Louis, try that again. I just downloaded it and saw the PDF there. If you can't get the handout, don't let that stop you. Just use a piece of paper and make the T as you see on this illustration, and work with a group that's there to come up with some discussion. Anybody else still in this session that needs instructions or help to get to the breakout? Audrey, I'm going to step away for about 2 minutes to grab something that I may want to share later on. So,
Okay.
Okay, we should be back in about 45 seconds, everybody.
Yep, and it looks like people are joining back in as we speak.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. Audrey, can you tell if we have most everybody back?
Yes, we are moving up in number, so I think we're good to go.
Welcome back. If we had a lot more time, we'd do a lot of debriefing on this, but I want just to have your general thoughts here as we're going through this. As you go through this exercise, this concept of cost benefit is actually one of the core pieces, in my opinion, to not only to marketing, but to volunteer recruitment and managing volunteers. My experience is that in most cases, we undersell the cost. We do not talk about the hidden costs. Did any of you discover hidden costs that you did not think about? Type a couple of costs down that maybe you discovered while you're on this discussion. Did any of you have any costs that surprised you when someone brought up the idea? Were there any hidden costs? Were there costs that were so obvious that you've always just trying to pretend they don't exist? Were there any costs that are costs to some and not to others? So if you have any ideas about any of the costs, feel free to type them on the board. Anxiety, being afraid of a new experience, being afraid of a teenager, being afraid of an old person, being afraid of being back in the office again. For some, I'm interested in trying to learn new skills. For some people, that's a benefit. For others, that is a cost. And that's just an interesting challenge of how do you match those two and understanding that. But my contention is there are lots of hidden costs. And my contention is normally when we in our brochures and discussions, we hide the costs and we overhype the benefits. And that seems to happen in virtually every volunteer program I've ever worked with, is we hide the costs because we think we're going to sell more. If we're not careful, we're going to sell more like some businesses do on late night television, where they'll only sell it once, but they can't sell it again. So the goal here is to be able to sell and sell again. In this case, recruit and keep volunteers. So after you go through this cost benefit, I'm going to now, so if you understand cost benefit, I'm now going to go through some little tools and just little ideas that might help in communicating this cost benefit and understand it better. So I'm going to start going through this and fairly rapid fire. I'm going to really give you a semester's worth of stuff in the next 15 minutes. So take notes, and you will not be graded here at the end. I'm an easy grader, so don't worry about getting the A or not. Stuffing envelopes. If I was to ask most groups of volunteers, of adults, how many would be willing to stuff envelopes for me 2 nights a week for an hour or two? Remarkably, some people will raise their hands. I'm always amazed at those good people that will do that. But most will say, no, I think I passed that stage. I don't want to stuff envelopes. But if I told you that stuffing envelopes 2 nights a week would save a child or mother's life or keep a family fed, would you then be willing to stuff envelopes? My point here is one of the keys in recruiting and marketing of volunteerism is connecting the dots. We have to be able to connect the dots between the task and the outcome. What you'll discover is it's not usually the task that's the obstacle. It's the connection between the task and the end result that becomes the obstacle. People are willing to do some really tough things if they think it's going to make a difference. The problem is that we are terrible at communicating that. And we have to connect the dots constantly and reconnect the dots constantly. Task and reward. I like the way you said that, Tanya. We have to make the connection between the tasks that we're asking them. And my experience is that we're not very good at that, or we think that we told them the very first time that they'll remember it. By the same principle is true as you manage your own staff in your organizations. We have to make that connection between connecting the dots. Like I said, I'm just going to go through quite a few marketing little things that tie into nonprofits here. Let's go to this next one here. Is the marketing rule: when you speak to everyone, you speak to no one. When you say everything, you say nothing. One of the things, if I was in a group of you together, I'd ask of you, how many of you have your little trifold brochures that you have at your front desk of your office? Most of you are going to raise your hands. If I asked you who you're speaking to in that group, you'd say, well, it's for everybody. This brochure is for everybody. We write our materials, we write our websites, we write our press releases for everybody. And the adage is, when you speak to everyone, you speak to no one. When you say everything, you say nothing. So this idea that we're trying to communicate to everyone at the same time is virtually impossible. And the idea that you can tell them everything about your cause or group is virtually impossible. So when you speak to everyone, you've got to narrow down who you speak to. You have to narrow down what you're saying. We waste an awful lot of marketing time, money, resources, and flyers on that principle, that we don't do that. So what we have to do is focus and figure out what our key messages are. Every volunteer organization should know what the main thing they want to say is. And everyone needs to know, and everyone needs to understand what that main message is. In most organizations I work with, probably including my own here, often the staff don't even know what your main message is. And that's just challenging. Got to know the main message here. And you have to focus on target audience that we're going to come back and talk about. Let me keep going here. As you try to figure out how to communicate and market and recruit, those of you, any of you have public relations background may recognize something like this. That basically on the left-hand side says that you have that on the left-hand side you see the various types of communication or experiences. There's mass media, biased. What's a biased intermediary? Your best easy way to think of that is the car salesman. Unbiased third parties. That could be a consumer reporter on television. That could be Consumer Reports. That could be another group that you trust. Key influentials. That could be a spouse, a partner, close friends, somebody you trust, versus personal experience. You go across the other way. You have awareness, interest, evaluate, trial, and adopt. So as you're trying to figure out what you're trying to communicate with a group, if all you want is awareness about your cause, you can see what the blue is. But if you want people to actually have interest in your cause, you go over and see where it is. But if you actually want them to do something, you can see where the personal experience comes into play. So every medium form, social media is part of mass media, key influencers, all of them have different affect your decision making at different times. So the main path that people use to understand and become aware of anything you're doing starts with the mass media, follows then down to people of key influentials, people close to them, family members, neighbors, and then the actual experience goes through in the adoption stage. The second most common way is this gold one. So if you look at this singularly, which approach is the most important approach when it comes to communicating, to recruiting for volunteers, to talk about your organization? It's actually key influentials. Key influentials are probably the most important and most neglected part of any of your marketing plans. Key influentials could be who? Could be your board members, could be other volunteers, could be your staff, could be family members of all these people. So key influentials is really the hidden secret in marketing and recruiting, yet we often rely on the mass media, emails, posters, etc. The idea that key influencers are critical. In fact, I was working with the police department not too many years ago, and they were saying, well, we just can't get the right kind of volunteers to volunteer for our police auxiliary. And I said, well, who knows what the right kind of volunteers are? Well, gee, all of our officers know. I said, well, have you ever asked your officers to recruit and promote through their social media neighbors for these positions? Well, no, they had not thought about that. In a matter of 3 weeks, this department had over 100 volunteers that met their qualifications purely by using key influentials. So my point here is, do you ask people who are already involved with you, do they know what you need? And are they becoming messengers for you? Let me keep coming down through this. In marketing, we have this problem. Give them what they want before they know they want it. One of the mistakes that we have in marketing, especially in nonprofit, is that we don't know what we rely on the wrong source to know what they want. Quick little PS on this. A lot of research over the years. If you ask somebody, do you want to be recognized? Most people will tell you no, because they know it's a socially acceptable thing to do. If you ask most people, hey, do you mind if we nominate you for an award? They say, oh, no, please, I don't want the recognition. Data shows rather clearly, if you recognize people and appropriately thank them and even give them gifts, small little gifts, their loyalty to you is much deeper. So people want to be recognized. People want to be acknowledged what they are, and done in an appropriate way. I show this very quickly to let you know that many of you in organizations where the cycles, when you could have been a popular issue and it may have slid down. If you take domestic violence, if any of you are in a domestic violence agency, for example, you discover the very popular issue that happened actually the very first time that it major American media was the burning bed with Farrah Fawcett in the early 80s, became a popular issue. Then it became less popular. Then it became back up being with O.J. Simpson. Then it came down again. Then it came back up with Scott Peterson. What I'm trying to tell you is that virtually every cause you're recruiting for has a life cycle. And if your life cycle is on the downward slope, you've got to try to find a way to have it on an upward slope with obviously less tragic approaches than the examples I've said. But just be aware of where your slope is, and that'll make a difference in your strategies. The other thing you've got to think about, and I'm kind of running out of time here, is understanding what your organization is about. You'll have copies of this, but really, what in business we say, well, how significant is the brand to the lives of the users? Here I'm saying, how significant is your cause? Is your cause significant to the lives of your volunteers? Is there a relationship that makes this cause relevant? I'm going to look at the clock here. The part that I want to focus on right here is this idea that great companies focus on their heavy users. And this is the same is true in volunteerism. What I want you to start thinking through is, what is the commonality of your best volunteers? You're going to discover that your volunteers have far more in common than you may know. Let me give you some examples of this as far as I get discipline the heavy users. Nike likes to focus on their heavy users. Has anyone ever seen a Nike ad with a guy like me in the ad? The answer is no. Nike focuses on the spectator, not on the spectator, but the star athlete. With the idea, if you keep the star athlete happy, the spectators will follow along. Disney, so that's why you don't see me. This is a Nike picture. Disney focuses on what's called the Disney file. The Disney file are people who go to Disney parks 10 times or more in a year. I hate to tell you that I could be in that category, and that could be me as a Disney file. But I regress as I say that. But the idea is that you focused on the people who are most like you. So who most like you, not are like you, but that are like you, that as far as they like your cause. So your challenge is to try to figure out what volunteers or what kind of people like your cause the most. And if we had more time, we'd go through and try to figure out, well, what commonality do I have? And as you look through it, in some organizations that work with you, find that almost every volunteer used to be involved in the PTA. Which means, okay, then where would I find more volunteers like that? I go back to people leaving PTAs. You may find that your volunteers all come in a particular industry. My challenge to you is to try to understand better the commonality and the common threads. So instead of trying to find a way to I want to get PTA people, and I also want to get 6 other kind of groups, Your first approach is to strengthen the group that already likes you to find more volunteers, and then it will naturally span out to a broader group. So this idea that volunteerism, that people in your organization have similarities. So if I would love it if you want to just even put down for a comment or two, can you think of any commonalities in your volunteers? Are they all retirees? If they're retirees, are they all retirees from a certain kind of industry? Are they retirees from blue collar or white collar? Anybody have any just thoughts that a common theme of the volunteers you have? Are they mothers who just experienced the empty nest? Are they faith-based? There's a lot of research on faith-based volunteers that you find that you find a lot of volunteers. Volunteers protect retired nurses, teachers. Look at all those different ones. They have a connection. So understand what that connection to that mission is. College students. So we often spend a lot of time to say, oh, we've got a lot of college students. Let's go on and find another group. I'm going to tell you, in most cases, you want to stabilize your volunteer corps by finding more of the same. And then you can figure out if there's another group you need to bring into it, find the value match that matches them. Because the value proposition, using a marketing term, that you have for a college student is very different than a value proposition you would have for a retiree. So trying to find out, I love Jasmine here put about the pet owners themselves. Finding that commonality is the same way Disney does it, the same way Nike does it. I'm going to take the last couple minutes here with some very simple principles here. Thank you for your comments there. There's my little exploitive pictures. So who's the first that can write down, tell me what magazine this is? What magazine is it? You see this picture, what magazine is this? Come on, you know it. All of you recognize it. National Geographic, you got it. That's and how did you know it's a National Geographic? Because it's consistent, because it has the gold around it, and every time they have it, it's gold. Okay, so here's your next quiz. Ready for the next one? Rapid fire quiz. What magazine is this? Now on to the next magazine. Time magazine, you got it. They all look the same. In nonprofits, we're really good, as we follow our passions from the PTA and a lot of church groups, is in October, all of our flyers are orange. In March, all of our flyers are green. In February, all of our flyers are pink. That is not a way to build a brand, not a way to make your money worthwhile. So in a simple statement, I'm going to say is that if you want to be more effective in reaching your volunteers and recruiting for your volunteers or anything, work to make sure there's a consistent look, a consistent feel, and a consistent message. All those need to align. We've got to get away from changing our type fonts, changing our colors, changing our designs every time we change the seasons. Consistency will save you money and have much greater impact. If you hold something up from a distance and they cannot tell it's yours, it's not well designed for you. Consistency on everything you do will save you money and increase the value of your brand in relationship to your volunteers. My last simple point in all of your messaging is you've got to learn how to mix the heart and the mind together. Heart is what will first get someone's attention, and mind is what will usually be the influencer on the decision. So the mind part is critical. We often do things on only the heart side or only the mind side. Your message and communication has to blend both of those. Let me just summarize here and see if we can just kind of summarize this discussion here today. What I've shared with you today for most of you is nothing new. Most of you already know what I'm saying, but may not have thought how it applied to your world. As far as marketers, you've all been marketers for your entire lives. In most cases, as adults, you've sold your money in exchange for something. You understand and have been part of marketing exchanges for your entire adult lives. Use what you already know. The same principle they sell you ketchup, the same principle they sell you a hamburger, the same principle they sell you a vacation applies in trying to recruit volunteers. The thing that matters in all of those is, do you give somebody value? Do you give somebody value, and is that value enough to be sufficient to keep them going? So let's not learn from our businesses out there. Let's make sure that we're ethical in explaining what the costs really are. Let's make sure that we're ethical and not overselling the benefits. Let's make sure that we're ethical and giving people guarantees in a way that we're saying the benefits aren't right, let's change you to something else. Let's be the kind of brand that we would expect ourselves to engage with. Think of the best brands and the best experiences, and let's find a way to do it. Simplistically, the world needs you right now. We need more volunteers. We need better volunteers. Now's the time to go figure out a way to do that. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Bill. I'm sad that we're not in person because I would love to drink that magical Coke that you had at the beginning.
Whoever wants to send me that check for $20,000, I'll be happy to overnight it to you.
So I hope you all enjoyed listening to Bill as much as I do. So just a few housekeeping tips. If you are a Volunteer Generation Fund grantee, we will have our next session at 2:45. If you are not a VGF grantee but a regular attendee, today is over, and we will hope that you join us tomorrow, Wednesday, October 28th at 9 a.m. for our opening Volunteer Engagement Roundtable. Thank you, everybody.